Yeah, I wonder if that's the case because just the size of a hard drive, like
Yeah.
a video, I'm sure the video on a cell phone, I mean, cell data probably eats that up. So,
It says it's recording, so I think we're good.
all right.
So since we're on that topic, to get credit for this, do I just submit this recording onto the thing, or are we still to write in the discussion board?
No, I think this recording will be sufficient for the discussion board. I had a friend that took this class and they uploaded their video to YouTube. So
this says after the session, upload the recording of your session to the discussion board to show the completion of the review, and then the two of us have to respond that we were there in the discussion board.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Sounds good. Also, weren't we originally paired with like a fourth member?
Yeah, I don't know what happened to John. I emailed our OTA about him. I've emailed him and he never responded. He's still in the class. So I don't know how he's getting credit for everything.
We're super lucky because I've got a buddy who's in the class and he's in a group with like 6 or 7 dudes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, like imagine all that work. That sounds awful.
Yeah.
That does sound awful.
Yeah. I mean, I've enjoyed listening to the sermons, but
yeah, for sure. I enjoy listening to 2 or 3 sermons. By the 7th one, I'd be like, oh my gosh.
For real.
It's a lot of work.
It's just like, it's funny to think we're in the same class and like what we can do in like 2 hours would take them like 10. So
right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think the primary purpose of this is just going to be to cover our sermon topics, but I wouldn't mind getting to know you guys a little bit anyway.
Yeah. Well, since we got 40 minutes, and I guess it started at around 8:10, so we got to like 8:50 to do this. Y'all want to take 5 minutes and just tell each other about ourselves?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I'll start. I live here in Louisville. I'm taking this course because I work a full-time job and I can't really work my full-time job and go into class in person. So I'm taking this online and I'm finishing up my MDiv. I graduate in like 2 weeks. I graduate on May 7th. So really excited about that. My wife, Emily, and I moved here from Jacksonville, Florida. We are having our new baby she's due on May 5th.
Nice.
So, yeah. Busy times, busy and exciting. So I'll definitely use the time that I'm not doing schoolwork and all that stuff with the new baby coming. And then this class doesn't even end till the end of May, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The online classes are on a slightly different schedule than on campus. So, but yeah, so our first child, a baby girl named Riley, is going to be born in early May. And I work as a chaplain for the University of Louisville Hospital. And I'm also a youth pastor at my church. So got a lot going on, and yeah. But that's pretty much all I do is church and work and school and being married and having a baby. I have very, very little social life.
Yeah. When did are you from Louisville?
No, I'm not.
Where are you from?
My dad was in the Navy, so that's kind of complicated, but my wife and I moved here from Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. Cool. And how long you been doing the MDiv?
About 2 years.
Oh wow, you did it fast then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
Ian, what church are you affiliated with in Louisville?
It's called Pleasant Grove Baptist Church.
Okay.
Yeah, it's out in Shepherdsville. It's about 30 minutes south of Louisville.
Okay, gotcha.
Cool.
Does anyone want to go next?
Yeah, I'll go. How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm Robbie. Robert probably is my screen, and maybe is my screen name Robert. Well, anyway,
Yeah,
I go by Robbie. 38, just turned 38 last month. I got a wife and 5 kids. started the MDiv program back in 2017, and I also will graduate May 7th. So
Awesome. Are you going to be here?
Yeah.
Awesome.
So so I live in Lexington, and so basically for the last 4 years, what I've done is I've done a modular. Well, usually it's a modular language like Greek syntax that lasts the whole 16 weeks, and then do an 8-week modular over top of those. Just do 3 classes a semester, a J-term class. But then when COVID hit last year in the summer, I work at the airport, and our passenger throughput went from like 3,000 a day to less than 100. And so I got to sit in an office and work on stuff all day long. And I was able to take 3 summer classes, and then I ended up taking like double the work in the fall as well. So it expedited my graduation by 7 months. So it's kind of nice
Awesome.
to get it knocked out. But so I'll graduate in May, and I'm a training instructor for the TSA, and I help out with like music ministry, student ministry at Ashland Avenue Baptist Church. Pastor David Prince is the preaching pastor. He's also a professor at Southern. He usually teaches preaching. He hasn't had preaching classes for a couple months or a couple of semesters, I think, because of COVID. I think they made some adjustments there, but so Ashland Avenue Baptist Church in Lexington, we've been members there for a couple of years now, and looking forward to finishing and kind of seeing what the next step is. So
awesome.
Do you know what you think the next step might be?
Well, so I've been helping with the student ministry for since the fall before COVID, so 2019 December fall semester, and I've been helping out with worship and kind of leading some groups and stuff like that, and they've just asked me to come on part-time there, working 10 or so hours a week, kind of committed to that a little bit more. They don't really have a position yet opened up on staff or anything like that, but just kind of taking what comes about. Financially we're good. My original purpose with seminary was just a desire to be equipped for the ministry in whatever capacity the Lord would lead in that. And so I've been just kind of hoping that the faithfulness there will open up the doors to, greater and greater things to steward. So, yeah.
Awesome. So you got 5 kids?
I do.
Yeah, that's great.
8, 7, 4, 3, and 2.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So you got a 5-year head start on me. I didn't start having until I was 29, but I had 5 of them between 29 and 36. So
I was about to say, yeah, those are grouped together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah.
Well, cool deal, man. I'm also graduating in May, so
No way.
Dip out. Yeah. But anyway, I'm in York, South Carolina right now. It's like a Charlotte suburb, essentially, like 30 miles south of Charlotte. And I don't know if you know anything about the States, but York, everybody in the world wants to live in York County because it's way cheaper to live in South Carolina than North Carolina. So everybody lives over here and works on the other side of the border. So there you go. It's a very unique ministry context. It creates you've got a lot of different folks doing life together around here. But it's cool. It's been fun. I was on campus full time in Louisville until last year. So COVID kind of got me sent home. I was living on campus, and when everything kind of hit the fan, I was like, am I going to keep my on campus deal? And since I can't come to campus now, and so I ended up coming home and taking a job, and I've just kind of been stuck here ever since. So I'm theoretically the director of student ministry at a local-ish church. But the sermons I've turned in so far, I preached during my pastor's absence. He was sick. He was hospitalized. Real long story. It would exceed our 5 minutes. But he was in the hospital for like 10 weeks. So I've kind of been an interim there, and he resumed the week before Easter. So he's back on track now. But yeah, I'm 24 as well. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. So I'm super slacking behind all of y'all. I'll get caught up one of these days. But yeah, so when I graduate, I'm looking into a church planning residency with a local church through the Pillar Network. They've got some facilities. They want to see Healthy Church planted on some property they have. So they've asked me to potentially come partner with them. So we're trying to get the details on that worked out. And then I got accepted just last week to a PhD program at Southeastern. So I'll start that in January, which is exciting and now very intimidating. So
Yeah,
What
that's
is
awesome.
what's your focus with PhD?
it's in preaching.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
What do you know what the workload is for the PhD program as far as comparable to the MDiv?
I really couldn't tell you. I believe it's like 15 hours a week or so per seminar is what they want you to kind of line out there. It's the program's 60 hours, but I don't off the top of my head, I feel like 24 hours of that is seminar work, and the rest of it is mentorship, dissertation writing, dissertation defense, all that stuff on the back end. So yeah, the program itself, when you look at the core seminars, they're not new stuff. Like it's hermeneutics, it's trends in preaching, it's so it's like MDiv on steroids essentially,
Yeah.
which is kind of attractive to me. Very kind of broad.
Yeah, I've considered either THM or PhD, and
Yeah,
I'm just kind of gun shy about the workload. I mean, I know a couple guys have gotten PhDs, and I know there's times of testing that comes along with it, but
right. Well, it came down to me. It really only popped up on my radar a year ago. It's not something I was ever like, I didn't set out to do this, but the kind of heart and passion started to be there. I was like, maybe I'd want to do this eventually. And then my MDiv starts wrapping up. I'm like, I don't know what is going to happen, but the next 5 years of my life are going to be the freest 5 years of my life, no matter how this shakes out. So let's just do it. Man.
Yeah, to give you, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming you probably want to be married maybe but one day, but
yeah.
I was 24, two weeks away from my 25th birthday, and I met my wife, and we were married by 2 months after my 26th birthday. So things could be looking up for you,
Yeah,
you never know. Yeah. So well, good. Let's start off with scripture and prayer, and then we'll get into talking about preaching. So I'm in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, pretty common text here. Paul talking to the church at Corinth. I'll let you get there. Yeah, so 1 Corinthians 2, starting in verse 1. And I, when I came to you, brothers, did not come proclaiming to you the testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified. And I was with you in weakness and in fear and in much trembling. And my speech and my message were not in plausible words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God. So I'm going to pray now. Heavenly Father, I thank you for the time together with these two men and for the opportunity to get to discuss the incredible task of preaching. And God, as we do so, I pray that our hearts would be more and more enamored with Christ, more and more enamored with the work of the cross, more and more enamored of the reality of the reconciliation that you've purchased by your blood through Christ. And Lord, I just pray that you would help us to edify one another for the task, to give words of encouragement, admonishment, correction, God, that we would see the fullness of your scripture as valuable for this time together. And I thank you for what we've already heard from each other and the words that you've allowed us to speak. We thank you for your word. God, I thank you so much for the freedom to get to open it up and to read it to my children, to my wife, to my congregation, to my friends, and now in this time together. We just thank you that you've given us your word, and help us to not miss just the great blessing, the innumerable blessings that come from your word. And we thank you for your promises. We thank you that they have their yes and amen in Christ. And may this time just be a a blessing to get to hear more from you as we fellowship and talk about just this beautiful calling that you've given us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Man,
So,
awesome. So yeah, it's really cool that we're all graduating. That's honestly a first. I feel like so many people just are in such different timelines that you can, whenever you sync up, it's like, oh my gosh, you're graduating too.
Yeah.
That's
Thomas, are you coming up here for the graduation?
Yeah, I am. And then I'm actually in church history 2 right now as well. So it's a modular. So I'll be there for like a week because I've got the modular meets the next week, which is terrible. Like
Yeah.
I graduate, then I just go to school for like another month.
that's what I was saying. It's like I'm going to graduate and then I'm going to have to go home and do homework.
I know, crazy.
Yeah. Are you in church history 2 with Wilsey?
I am. Yep.
Yeah, I took it with Wilsey too.
I
He's
like
great.
him. I think I had like one of his first classes there. I like him. Yeah.
Cool.
So I guess the easiest way is probably just to pick a sermon and just kind of talk about it.
Yeah. So let's see. It's 8:26. So what is that? 25 minutes.
Okay.
We've got.
We should totally get an extension, but we can plan for the 25 minutes. But whoever's hosting is going to get a notification with like 10 minutes left that we get like a extension.
Oh, okay. Good deal.
So I guess we'll just start with Ian's sermon then.
Sounds good.
You started with the introduction. I actually lost my notes that I wrote on your guys' stuff, and my desk is a mess, covered in sheet music and stuff. So, but I think I can remember. I think I can remember my highlights and stuff. So, yeah, Ian, I thought. Just to make sure, I just want to make sure I got it right because the link that you sent kind of took me to some random videos, but I think I found it was a Good Friday. It was Matthew 27:32 through 54.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think what I enjoyed. So it kind of when it started out, knowing it's a Good Friday service, knowing that can really be carry kind of two different atmospheres with it, where you got one that's very joyful, and then one that's a little bit more ominous. And I felt like it was a little bit more ominous. I didn't see the beginning, like the worship and that kind of stuff that led up to it, but I felt like you kind of kept, if it was, you kind of kept there's a somberness to it, right? And there's a somberness to the reality of what happened and the reality of your text. And I thought you kept that. I thought you really maintained that throughout your preaching, and it was just the gravity of the crucifixion scene. I think you captured it well with the way that you proclaimed the text. It was definitely different than the way you preached the Peter text. And
yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, because the whole Good Friday service was meant to be somber. That was the tone that we were aiming for, because you kind of have to pick one, because it's like there's the joyful tone, there's the somber tone, and it's like if you're bouncing back and forth, it can just kind of get weird. But yeah. So
and I thought it was good. Like I that was it. I kind of felt it as you were teaching. I was like, I feel the moment, even though I'm not even in the building. I was like, this feels real to me. And so I thought that was good, which is unusual for me when I'm watching a video. Usually I need something to spur those emotions on, but just the way that you delivered it, I thought kind of got me there. I'm trying to think of what else. Thomas, if you want to jump in, you can.
I can let you hit all your stuff if you want, and then I can walk through. That might be the fastest way to do that. Maybe.
Well, I was hoping your feedback might spark, because I'm just not able. I'm not finding the.
Well, let me jump in. I'll walk through my sheet real quick because I just filled it out this afternoon. I actually made it through both y'all's messages twice, but I was doing things both times, so I had to go back and compare some notes. But I filled out a sheet for both of y'all, so I'll just walk through that with Ian real quick. I'll say this blanket statement comment to both y'all, because it applies to both y'all. These sermons were way better delivery, but I'm trying to decide if that was just because you had audiences this time.
Yeah.
And like that had to have something to do with it. So I definitely got a new perspective on both y'all as preachers. But exegetical accuracy, nothing inaccurate. Ian, I don't know if you looked at the sheet, but I think your biggest challenge was that's just a lot of verses for not a lot of time. So scope was your biggest challenge there. I think you did a good job with the theme, right? And the theme is I mean, you can read, I had to read all this stuff for entrance exams. I mean, you can read Broadus, you can read MacArthur, you can read everybody that's anybody who's wrote on preaching. You've got to have a binding theme. And I think both of you guys pulled that off this time, and it made it clear. So yeah, exegetical accuracy, solid. Doctrinal substance, really good. I really like, anytime you get Genesis 3:15 in your sermon, you did the right thing. Like, that's just how that works. So yeah, I mean, that was strong. But then the emphasis on God's sovereignty over that process. God's decreeing this, God's doing this. Like, yeah, that's good. If God's not sovereign over the cross, nothing important happened there. So that's really good. Clear structure. What did I say here? Oh yeah, I'll be honest with you, your structure didn't tangibly stick out in my mind, but again, because of the centrality of the theme, like, I know what you talked about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember more of the content of your sermon than the structure of your sermon, and I'm not really into rigid structure of sermons. Like, I know what you talked about. That's that. Vivid illustration. You didn't have a ton of it, and I gave you a 10 for it because you shouldn't have, because it was somber and it was ominous. And if you would have like stopped talking about the cross to give me like some cheesy Brian Chappell take a slice out of life illustration, I would have hated it. So,
well, I really appreciate that, because I intended to not have any illustration, because I agree. I think that, like, there's something about the Good Friday service, at least our delivery of it, of what we wanted to do as a church, was just different than normal Sunday of preaching. Where I was kind of taking a risk in the whole intentionally not doing any application or not doing any illustration.
Right.
But yeah.
I counted your reference back to Psalm 22 as an illustration. That maybe not be the best term for it, but you kind of set Psalm 22 beside the text, obviously, and what it did was illustrate essentially your point, or demonstrate your point about God's sovereignty over it. Like, he's clearly already decreed it because he just told you right here this exact same thing that's happening right here. So I thought that almost kind of served that function, yet in a really somber tone still. So you pulled it off well. Pointed application. Again, I don't know if Brian Chappell's great in this, if he like thinks it's textbook, but it fit. Like, there was organic application because of what the content of the message was about, and I think you just let it happen. And so yeah, good job with that. Delivery, in terms of style and appropriate emotion, you were all over it. Like, the theme of the way it came out of your mouth is the way it needed to come out of your mouth. So I thought you did a good job with that. And supernatural authority. Yeah, it was from the text. It carried the text. Like I say, only challenge with this, and I don't know what the right answer is, but the breadth of the text you covered in the span of time you were given to cover, that's challenging. That's the biggest challenge of this, for sure.
Yeah.
So were you given, because it was almost 20 minutes on the dot. Was that kind of your time limit?
Yeah, my time limit was 15.
Okay.
So yeah. Well, and to what you said with the whole time limit thing, when they told me I had 15 minutes to preach about the death of Jesus, I was like, what? Yeah. But you work with what you're given, and I originally I was having a hard time because there's so much background to like the death of Jesus. Like, even before that, it's the crucifixion of Jesus, and even before that, it's like everything that builds up. So it's just, how am I supposed to, and even before that, it's like the whole context of the whole Bible.
Right.
How are you supposed to fit all of that?
Well, it's easy. You go to Genesis 3:15.
Yeah.
So, I will say on God's sovereignty, and you both have taught on this text in your sermons, but when talking, and I loved in Thomas's first sermon when you hit on this point where Jesus gives up his spirit, he yielded up his spirit. It was that's the only man that could ever say that, or that could be said of, was that he gave up his spirit. And I think just that the sovereignty of God over that in both of your sermons, I feel like has resonated with me, and I thought about it after the fact. So that was good. One thing I would say, I agree with all of Thomas's points. So with the time limit that you had, I think when you started going back through 32 through 54 to bring in Psalm 22, I felt like if you could have done Psalm 22 while bringing in Matthew 27 into that, it would have saved you about 2.5 minutes of reading Matthew 27 again, those 23 verses, and
Yeah.
it would have really shown in Psalm 22 those exact points that Matthew was hitting on. And I think that would have just saved you some time. So it would have given you some opportunities to maybe expound a little bit more. And I think it would have maybe made Psalm 22 a little bit, I think it would have made both texts relating to one another, giving it a stronger appeal.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one.
But other than that, I mean, I think everything he said was on point. Yeah, I agree as far as exegetical accuracy. I mean, you clung to the scriptures, so I mean, you can't really go wrong there, right? Doctrinal substance was fine, clear structure. Yeah, again, there wasn't a whole lot of like, you didn't have your alliterated points, your 3 alliterated points and all that stuff, but
Yeah.
you don't need it with something like this. Again, and I think he's right with the illustration. I think we've talked about your application and your delivery. I think your delivery was, for me, that was the strongest part of it. So, which is interesting because I would probably have said your first time, I would have probably said your delivery was probably your weakest part of it, but this time it's probably your strongest. So it's interesting. So that's a good.
Well, good.
Hopefully that's a good talking point for you.
Yeah, good. I'm glad that's improving. Very good. I'm just pulling up the did you say you posted the rubric for the evaluation on here? Okay.
I believe, yeah, for you, I posted for both y'all what I just read off for you pretty much.
Okay, cool.
And I'm coming up at a loss with what I did with your notes. They were right in front of me, and I'm not even, I don't know. So.
All right, anyone want to go next?
I've got Robbie's notes pulled up if you want to run down those.
All right.
Robbie's up. Okay.
Have it.
Exegetical accuracy, man. Yeah, I thought you did a good job binding yourself to the text. What you just talked about with Ian, I mean, you kind of walked through it systematically, phrase by phrase, and you explained it well. So yeah, you can't screw that up. Good. Doctrinal substance. Again, I thought what you said was solid. Nothing amiss in this area. I feel like maybe this is the place to bring us in. Because it circles back around in application. The only thing I wonder is, and you killed this in your illustration about like, if you can't marry my daughter, you can't be a pastor, right? Like, yeah. Yes, that's a heck of an illustration, but also that kind of highlights the truth of this text where it really in Titus 1 right there, just like you got the same thing going on in Timothy, being a pastor is just being a good Christian who can also teach, you know what I'm saying? So like, maybe there were more avenues for you to explore that with this audience. Cause obviously maybe there's future pastors in there, but there definitely are kids who aren't. So maybe there was more opportunity to do that. That's the only thing I'll say. Clear structure. Yeah. You follow the text strictly, like phrase by phrase. So, would Chapel sign off? I don't know, but I like it because it was just phrase by phrase. Yeah. And again, the illustration, oh my gosh, that was great. If you can't marry my daughter, if you can't marry somebody's daughter, you can't be a pastor. That's how it goes. And also, I mean, I also like the one that stuck out to me after the fact when I was thinking back through it, how you compare World War II generals and how that was tactically planned and how therefore how much more so is the church's leadership tactically, strategically, sovereignly planned. Yeah. So this is God's plan for the battle. Good. Pointed application. Yeah, that's challenging. Like, I mean, you had good, like your application is valid in the sense you circle back around and say, okay, here's who pastors are. Look to your pastors, lean on your pastors, follow the example of your pastors. But other than that, I mean, it's hard text to apply. Like was that text like assigned to you? Because it sounds like it followed what had happened the week before.
Yeah. So my the student leader, he opted for the book of, we had 7 weeks left for our student ministry. He opted for the book of Titus.
Right.
And I ended up with 5 through 9. And next week I've got 2, 1 through 10. So it's very similar. Next week it's household codes and like
Nice.
so it's really I think the lists, because to me, when you go down the list of qualifications for an elder, the nots and the do's and the don'ts,
Right.
it's kind of self-explanatory, right? Like you
Right.
see
Right.
somebody, the sober-mindedness, all those things, not
Spent
arrogant,
more of
all
your
that.
time saying what the words meant.
What's that?
I said you spent more of your time just saying what the words meant than anything.
Right. And
Yeah.
especially when I'm teaching there's 11-year-olds in the room. It's like getting 11-year-olds to 18-year-olds to get excited about pastoral qualifications. That's tough.
Right.
So
Right.
I tried to do what I could, but yeah, so it was part of a series.
Okay. Only other thoughts? Yeah, delivery again. I don't know if it's live audience. I don't know if it's different context. I thought this delivery was really good, and I thought it was contextually appropriate. And yeah, it inherently carried supernatural authority just because you strictly phrase by phrase unpack the text. So good.
Okay. Yeah, I think the delivery. I was interested to see your all's feedback on that, because I told you the context for a reason.
Right.
I probably wouldn't have done that thing at the beginning where I said we're going to take a trip to Crete. I geared that for that audience. I wouldn't have done that with adults. I wouldn't think it's necessary, but
Yeah, I agree with everything that Thomas has said, but I'll point out a few things that I noticed that he didn't quite say. I really enjoyed the context that you set up in the beginning. I thought it was creative. I thought it was really you bringing us in, like, listen as if you are receiving this letter, and just putting us in this life situation and explaining what's going on. So I thought that was really good. I understand, because I also work with youth, so I also understand the type of context you would set up, like how you would set it up between children and between adults. But I thought that was really creative. I also thought the structure was easy to follow, verse by verse. I mean, you really can't go wrong with that. I really enjoyed the illustration of blameless. I thought the way you walked through it and what it means, and what he's talking about when he says the word blameless, and it's not like perfection or sinless. I thought that was really good, because I think that word can really trip a lot of people up.
That's where you referenced Daniel, right?
mm-hmm.
Now that he mentions that, yeah, I remember making a mental note of that too. That was a strong point for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Doctrinal substance, exegetical accuracy. Again, I'm not just going to repeat the same thing that Thomas said. I thought it was really good. I thought your delivery was also really good. Again, I think there is a big difference in probably just audience, having between recording it like in our homes versus having it recorded in front of people. I thought the delivery was really good, and very clear, and improvement from the last one. And pointed application. I mean, yeah, that's a little tough. I thought you did a good job. I don't really think there's any better job that you could have done with pointed application for this text. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, I think Thomas summed it up pretty well. I think it was a good sermon. I think you did good. How did the kids receive it?
Man, kids are just tough. You're never going to get feedback from them. Like maybe that 11-year-old that tells you, hey, I appreciate it, but then you're like, are you just kind of saying that, or like, did you really get something from it? I mean, there's some hard truth that gets preached to them, and I'm thankful for it. But as far as feedback, I didn't get any. So
yeah. Oh, another note that I made was that you in the beginning you brought up election. Just it's not like you purposely like taught on election and explained it, but you mentioned it, and I just think that that's good, because I've heard a lot of pastors, especially preaching to children, who will kind of skip over that word because they don't want to confuse the kids, or they don't want to anger the parents or something like that. And then they grow up and they're like 25 or 30 or 40 years old, and they've never heard the word election before. And so I just made a mental note of that, and I was like, good for you.
I appreciate that, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's helpful to get to listen back on your own. I feel like it's helpful to get to hear others that are kind of in a similar place for you as you are. So, but all right, Thomas, you ready?
Yeah. Did we ever get that extension, Ian? Did it ever
Yeah, we
pop
did.
up? Okay, great.
You were all over that. You knew that was coming. So yeah, man. I really wish I had my notes because I had it all written out for you, but I'm trying to. So Revelation 5, obviously, the text is fantastic. It's one of the best texts in the scripture. With exegetical accuracy and Christocentricity, you can't really mess that up. Just from thinking back on it, I think one of the strongest parts going to Christocentricity. I loved when you started breaking down the things that the cross has accomplished, and I wrote them out. I can't remember all that they are, but it was a very captivating moment, and I thought that was. I mean, it's right in line with Revelation 5, and it's pulled from. I mean, Revelation
21, the first
21, yeah, wiping every tear from every eye, all those things. Like just the way that you kind of went down that list, I thought it was just it just I wait for those moments in sermons, those moments that kind of grip me, and that was one of those that I think stands out. I think let me get there. So doctrinal substance, yeah, I mean you're there. I mean I'm gonna be, checking off those boxes to make sure it lines up and stuff like that, and all of it. I mean, all of it's good. You've got the sermon filled with doctrine. You've got it focused on. It's centered on Scripture, centered on the work of Christ, centered on the purposes of God, and bringing about restoration and consummation, those kind of things. The structure was clear. I don't remember what your points were, but I was able to write them down. So whatever they were, I had them written out, and so it was easy to follow. Your introduction, body, conclusion was all good. Vivid illustration. So you used in the beginning. You used the Utah Jazz and the Chicago Bulls. I wonder when that's gonna. I'm wanting to know when that gets outdated. So you're 24.
Right.
So you weren't very old when that took place.
I mean, yeah.
You were like 1 year old.
Right.
Or maybe not even born. 1 year old.
I probably watched it, but I was, an infant or whatever. But I mean, I grew up a ESPN nerd, so I'm in on all those moments. But here's my biggest issue. My context would have been in their prime when that happened. Yeah. So those old dudes knew what I was talking about.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And that's good.
A guy the next week walked up and said the only way you could have made it any better is you talk about Magic and Bird.
That's funny. So it's interesting because like I couldn't use that in my context probably with the 11 to 18-year-olds, but you knew your context, so that's good. And I'm wondering when those type of Jordan's probably going to be good. He's probably good through the rest of our lives.
Right.
And then LeBron and stuff will start taking over, but. I thought that was a good illustration. There was one that I actually wrote down that I think was better, but I'm gonna have to think about it. And it'll probably surprise you if I can remember it, because it's not one that you didn't labor on it very long, but it got me. So I'll have to come back to that one if I can think about it. Pointed application, man. I thought, and I appreciate your boldness. And you mentioned in my first one talking about who are you, the wicked, or are you the blessed man? And you were like, to be willing to preach that kind of truth is something like rare. Or I don't remember how you said it, but it's kind of a refreshing thing. When you started building up the church for what was this church here for? And you said, it was planted here 50 years ago or whatever it was, and 10,000 people in this area, and yada yada yada. And here I am before 50 people. Have we forgotten our mission? And I thought that was like,
oof.
I was like, man, I hope you have a good rapport, because you might not be invited back after something like that.
Right.
So,
I was a little concerned about actually both the numerical side and the race side both concerned, but it went over super well. Like I was shocked. I mean, they took it in stride and were like, yeah. I was like, wow, I didn't see it coming, but they did it. So
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And given that kind of goes into number 7, supernatural authority. Like I don't think you can stand up there and say something like that unless you expect God to do something to hearts, right? Like
right.
and I think that's where when you're teaching, when I'm asking, are you the wicked man or are you the blessed man? Like you can't ask a question like that if you don't expect God to move, right? Like you can't ask them, hey, have you forgotten your mission? Because there's 50 people here and there's 10,000 out there that need the Lord. And a lot of those don't look like you, And so like the only way you can say that is with the expectation that God's going to move, right? And so
Right.
I think you hit number 7 with that. And then helpful delivery. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what people tell you about your preaching and that kind of thing, but you, for 24 years old, like it's actually really surprising to me, the freshness in your delivery, the confidence in proclaiming, the way that you structure, you don't stumble, you I don't know, it's like you know how to communicate the text to people. And I think I'm excited to see what the Lord does with your ministry, just because I mean I've listened to a lot of preaching, and I really enjoy getting to listen to you preach. So
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna parrot what Robbie just said. I really enjoyed all your old sermons, and Thomas, I'm also very impressed with your sermons. I'm not surprised that you want to get a PhD in this. And honestly, I was surprised when you said you weren't that full-time pastor of that church and hadn't been doing this for 30 years, So yeah, and what Robbie said about the confidence that you had, and just kind of because I mean, with that and the beard, I kind of expected you to be the full-time pastor of this church for 20 years. And now you're just taking this class to shape up your skills a little bit, or get a little bit of it, or just because you're bored or something like that. Like I really, like, you just kind of walked up and it's just like, yeah, he's a leader. Like he's the guy who's been here for 20, 30 years, so you just walked up with that. And to learn that this is a church are you a part of this church?
I've been working there since last June.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm the director of student ministry. I'll probably preach there now like 15. No, I'm sorry. I preached 17 times this year while the dude was out, but before that I'd probably preached 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it's getting easier as you do it more?
Yeah, I think that congregation's a particular challenge in some sense. One being the King James. That's number one. Like it's just awkward.
They only take the King James?
They're used to it. That if I got up there and did something else, the congregation wouldn't care, but that's what the pastor preaches out of. So therefore that's what I preach out of. But yeah, that congregation has been, I'm preaching my last sermon for this class next Wednesday night. Just found that out today, so I don't know like where we're going with that. But I really enjoyed while I was consistently every Sunday. It definitely seemed like it was easier in some regards because I could build off of myself. Like I could build off of what it just like happened last week instead of preaching one-off sermons all the time. I'd like to be in a context where that was different, where you're just either you're the guy or you're part of a team where you're systematically walking through the same thing. That would make life easier.
Cool.
Yeah. So I was just, so very, very good job. I really like, you really just do bring and I would chalk this up to the supernatural authority. You really do kind of bring that kind of pastoral presence, supernatural authority with you when you're speaking and behind the pulpit. I loved the illustrations, especially the 98 finals. I honestly don't think that'll ever age out. I think at least for 100 years, probably. maybe that's a little much, but I really like that. Thought it was really good. Sovereignty can be trusted, promises be relied upon. That was great. That line. That was awesome. And then you set it up with this one day, but not yet. Kind of, this context of what's happening in Revelation, what's all coming to fruition and all this stuff, and how this is what's promised, and we're not there yet, but this is what's promised, and that back and forth, and that kind of you did it with this, and you did it with the verses that Robbie was talking about, the for the cross statements or by the cross statements. It was like these two parters of the one day but not yet, and then the what's one of the lines you used?
Are you talking about at the end, kind of where the tension's off? And I walked through the same list and said, this is coming, but it's not here yet. And then at the end, I said, this is going to happen because of the cross. I went through the same list.
Right. Yeah. So you had a few times where this happened, where you could really just kind of feel the weight change. And
right.
I think that was because of what you were saying and because of how you were saying it. But I'm talking about the verses or the things that Robbie pointed out. It was near the beginning where you said like all tears would be wiped away because of the cross. And
right.
So and
yeah,
you had like 5 or 6 because of the cross statements.
Right.
Yeah. The Lamb is worthy. And again, with what Robbie was saying, are you willing to change to reach different people? And awesome. My church is one that would greatly benefit from hearing your sermon. Because putting yourself out there, reaching people, staying on mission, reaching people who are different than you, huge need. So I'm just really glad that they received that well. I'm glad the Holy Spirit caused them to receive that well, because again, I think that was an awesome application and just super pointed, where I could almost feel like, ooh, I hope that works out. Like I wanted it to be it was so good that I wanted it to be received well, but then I also know that it may have not have been. So I'm glad that it worked out. And again, I'm not going to parrot what Robbie said about, I agree with him about everything he said with the delivery was great, application great, illustration great, all that stuff. The only part that I would bring up is that, and I really think that this is because of the subject of what you were talking about, but I almost got a little confused I wasn't confused about the message, but it seems like there were 2 messages, and not through the whole thing, just on a portion of your sermon. And it was right after this application of, are you willing to go out and reach different people? Okay, so you have that's heavy, like doctrinal, pointed, awesome, right? And then you've got the other, your message of Revelation 5, and the Lamb is worthy, and no one else is worthy, and by the cross all these things have been done, and they will be done. So you got my ears heard 2 really heavy statements, and then I was like, okay, so which one am I going with? And I know it's this one, because obviously you talked about the reaching different people for like 3 minutes, and the rest of your sermon was about worthy is the Lamb. So I knew that, but just at that, probably 5 to 10 minute point, I was like, okay, where is he gonna go next? Is he gonna go with what I think he's gonna go with, or is he gonna go with the bomb he just dropped on everybody? So I don't think that's like a negative. It's just to my ears, that's how it sounded.
Gotcha.
Again, I don't know if that's anything you can fix, because like you go with your main point, that was great. You dropped a bomb, that's great. I don't think you change anything. That's just the one thing that I kind of turned my ears a little bit.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, when I'm reading through the manuscript, thinking about it, I mean, it was, the whole thing was the structural packaging was the issue for me all week. Exegetically, I had the notes. I felt like I knew what was going on. It's really funny how God works here. everything that Robbie pointed out about Revelation 21 hit me when I was at a praise and prayer night for a church plant on Friday night. And the guy was reading Revelation 21, and I was like, how am I going to set up the tension? And he read Revelation 21. I was like, there's the tension. Like, if the cross doesn't happen, none of these things come to pass. That's going to carry my whole sermon. I went home, put it in my notes. And there we go. But, you know, even when I'm thinking about the application, it's like, does this flow with the main idea of my text? Not necessarily. Can I faithfully read over this and not point this out to these people who aren't interested in being faithful on this point? I don't think I can. So it wasn't necessarily, you know, if I walked into, you know, just a super healthy church to guest preach one week, I probably would definitely tone that down so that my main point shine through. But I kind of felt convicted to say it. So I just kind of deviated for a second.
Sorry, did you guys hear that?
Yeah, no big deal though. I found my notes here. So
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Thomas, and yeah, I agree. Good job. No.
I will say this, now that we're kind of talking a little bit about your sermon and kind of reflecting on it a little bit. If I were to, and it's interesting because I was just reading.
I'm in a meeting. Can I call you in like 10 minutes? Sorry, guys.
No problem. Yeah, so I was actually reading through. John Broadus was my historical mentor for this class, and so I was reading through his on the preparation delivery of sermons today. And my final point for my paper is his point on the objective. Wait, let me think about it here. No, it's not the final point. But anyway, he talks about it is under objective. So the objective is please God, salvation of souls, edify the church, and grow men and women into maturity in Christ. And that's your aim. And with every sermon, there needs to be a specific proposition, a specific purpose that you set out to fulfill. And if you don't have one thing, you end up missing all the things that you aim at. And I will say with this one versus your John, if I were summarizing your sermon from John, you know, and I haven't listened to it for now a month almost. It was the sovereignty of God in the death of Christ, in bringing about, you know, salvation for the world. This one, I only listened to it 2 days ago, and I don't know that I could tell you what the primary point was. He had a lot of really good moments. Now, it's not always a bad thing. So I'll tell you, my favorite preacher, and I think probably the best preacher of our generation, is Paul Washer. And I think and that's just personal opinion. I've just listened to him so much. I've grown a lot under his teaching. But like the other day, I was mowing and listened to him preach on Ezekiel 36, and it's an hour and 22 minutes. And he hits on 1,000 different things. Okay. His point is regeneration and self-denial. That's the title of the sermon. He hits on a ton of different things that, like, I could listen to it over and over again and be edified in a bunch of different ways. And so I think that's the beauty of our access to media now, is we can kind of let these things kind of come in and out of our minds often if we want to. Like, I could listen to your sermon over and over again, and I'd probably be edified from your last one in a bunch of different ways. With your first one, I think that I would be edified the same way almost every time, because I think your primary points we're all working toward one big emphasis, and so I don't think it weakens it. I think some of your preaching professors probably would say you need to have a more clear point, but I think they wouldn't appreciate Paul Washer, and he's just somebody who I've grown so much under, and I appreciate his teaching. So
right, and that's what I mean, because when I'm thinking through y'all's sermons, both, like, and I'm probably pretty guilty of this in the Revelation sermon, I don't think any of us box checked technical structure, if you know what I'm saying, like the way that the preaching books would want it structured. But I point this out on all these sermon analysis that we have to do, where we listen to great preachers and like say what we learned at the end of every paper, I'm like, they would have got a bad grade on the sermon in this class. Because I mean, like, seriously, listen to Piper preach, and I'm kind of the same way. I like Washer a lot, but Piper's probably, he's been kind of my most influential guy. But I mean, seriously, listen to him preach and tell me if he does any of the things they're asking us. He makes all of his points through rhetorical questions. Like, he's not doing the chapel illustration. He's not applying every point. He's got one application. Like, they don't play by these rules. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. And that's good. I think that and this goes to like why Johnny can't preach maybe. And he's probably a little bit too systematic, and kind of the outcome he's looking for is probably a little bit too systematic. But I think the difference is we can access these things over and over again. Like I had one shot each week, Sunday morning, to preach to my congregation. What do I want to leave you with? Like, I want everybody to walk out with the same thing. And that's even wrong too, because our church, we got 350, 400 people that all come in with different things, and the word of God's going to work in a different way. And I think it's okay that all of them aren't walking out with the same end result, right? So it's kind of like, it's almost like you learn all these rules so that do you play music?
A little bit, yeah.
I just see the guitars and
right there. I've been playing for a few years. The reason I say a little bit is like, I can play chords, shapes, tabs. I'm not like a theory guy though. So if it's theory, I'll be lost.
So like learning music, okay, like you learn chords, and then you start learning scales, and you learn all these things in boxes, so that when you get proficient at them, you can start to freestyle and do your thing. And it's almost like that's kind of what preaching is like, get the basics first, like learn how to structure a sermon, which is what I'm learning. So what you guys don't know is the first sermon that I actually preached it twice. The first time I preached it to my pastors and some of our leaders, and knowing I was going to be under a critical year, and like I butchered it. Like I missed all my main points, everything. Like I was nervous, all those things. Like it was awful. I can't believe they didn't stop me at some point to say, hey man, you just need to start over, because it was that bad. So I got to preach it twice. And so but just learning, and part of my issue is remembering to hit those main points, because I think those are what stick with you. Like the first one for Titus was your pastors, your example. Actually, that might have been my second point. But anyway, like, so for an 11 to 18-year-old, they need to remember my pastors are my example. Like I hope that they think about that. So like this person, not only are they somebody I follow, but they need to be somebody that I should follow. Like they need to live that kind of lifestyle, And so, yeah, I think I don't, we're kind of being probably nitpicky, but I think it's just kind of like what you said, like we're being taught these things and kind of looking at these things, but at the end of the day, like we're, even the best of the best don't follow these rules. So
all right.
So,
well, do you guys have anything else?
You about done?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you not done?
No, I'm good. I was just, are we wrapping it up?
Ian's going to make phone calls, man.
I know, keeping it from it. Who are y'all's historical mentors? I'm just curious.
I'm doing Calvin.
Okay.
I'm doing Spurgeon. I've never read lectures to my students. Don't ask me how that's happened, but it's happened. So there you go.
It's a good one. I haven't read all of it. I read I read a paragraph or two at a time because it's so good.
Yeah.
So cool. I did Broadus, so a little bit different, but
yeah.
So good.
It's interesting. It's interesting reading Preparation Delivery sermons, because his context is so much different than ours. Like he's almost a trailblazer. Like he's kind of laying out exposition as like one of many options at that point in time, because at that point in time there wasn't an evangelical consensus on what a sermon is,
Yeah. And he kind of is. I think he was pulling on a lot of that Greco-Roman rhetoric and using those
Right.
rhetoricians and just kind of establish. He's really big on arguments and that
Right.
kind of stuff. And
Dude, have you got to his chapter on where he's talking about how you can enhance your voice?
I actually went to that one because I don't like my voice.
Okay.
And so I've kind of I don't remember it. I was kind of just thumbing through it.
Here's his main argument. He's essentially like, you got to expand your chest. You got to do chest exercises. So you need to bench press. Apparently, that's the conclusion.
I do remember that. Yeah, that's funny.
I will say, if you don't want to do that though, Rummage from Southeastern in Engaging Exposition, he like essentially went back and was like, no, he's like, now we know like everything about your voice happens at the back of your throat. He's like, you can't really do anything to your chest to change it. So, but I struggle to see how it would be a bad thing for pastors to bench press more. So I kind of want to.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really funny. But well, cool. So you guys are going to both be up there for graduation. Maybe we'll pass. Do you?
Yeah.
Oh, let me ask you this. Do you want to do you guys want to do the Zoom for the last one as well? For the last.
If we can find a date, I've really enjoyed it tonight. It's just flexibility is always it's always hard to find times. But yeah, if we can get a time, I'd love to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this better, and Thursday nights work best for me. So.
Yeah, with the baby coming, I have no idea what night I'll be free, but we'll plan something.
It's gonna be good, man.
Okay.
It's gonna be good.
Also, does anyone else know, like, once I pause this recording, is it gonna like save to my computer?
I can't feel that. I don't know.
Okay. I mean, I'll figure it out.
If nothing else, I think we get. I've got your all's papers now. I think that will be sufficient for the review, but I know they wanted a video for one, so I mean, if it fails, we can at least all agree that we did it, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, worst case scenario, we could just email Ray and tell him what's up. But I think it'll be fun.
Yeah,
it could go in the cloud, because isn't there like a cloud recording deal where you just upload a link or something? Because
it's gonna be something like that. I'll figure it out.
Cool.
All right then.
All right, guys.
Enjoyed it, guys.
Yeah, same. See you guys later.
See ya.